Hey there, welcome back. It is Dr. Shané of SP Consulting Group, your organizational development psychologist and licensed psychotherapist who comes here to help gather up folks who are also pursuing peace. That's really the end all and be all of it all. Okay. So I hope that you guys are faring okay. I've been checking in or trying to check in with a number of people just to make sure that you're okay, posting on socials a little bit more to help you guys be in this place where you find ways to get peace. Just so you all know, we are going to be having a guest on our next episode. I believe we're going to be posting, but I'm getting ready to begin sharing stories of other leaders, high impact leaders, people leaders, top executives, business owners, serial entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, all of the above, women and men who are trying to find their way in this world, in their business by pursuing peace. So we're talking about stress. Am I the only one on the struggle bus? Yes, that's the title of it. And there's a reason why that's the title of it. A lot is going on. I say that all the time, but it seems like it's increasing, right? Well, let's take a minute. I want you guys to have a moment. I have my tea. I hope you have your tea. If you are listening to an episode of this podcast, this is actually episode 4. Okay. Episode 4 of season 8. If you are listening to this in your car, make sure you're holding the wheel. Make sure you're sipping on that water because it is hot out here. Okay. It is hot and you got to stay hydrated. That is a part of staying well, being well, and doing all the things that you need to do to balance, release stress, and all the things that we always talk about. So I'm sitting here drinking my tea, minding my business. You may hear clackety clack. That's my mug, my San Francisco mug. Did y'all know that I collect mugs? Very random, but I do love drinking tea. I'm drinking chamomile tea. If you have water, please take a sip with me as you listen in because we're going to get down to the nitty gritty of why it's so hard, why it is such a challenge to decrease, minimize, manage stress. And I'm going to take you guys through the physiological, the biological, the cognitive, the neurological explanation, but also offer you some real world feedback, real world tips and things that you can use. And for those that are watching on my YouTube channel, you get to see me pull up some of the information that I am talking about as we go along. So, again, if you are listening to this on one of the podcast platforms, whether that is Apple Podcasts, whether that is Google, whether that's Anchor, whatever the platform is for you. You may even be using, what is it? Spotify. Whatever platform you're on, welcome. Welcome. We are here to just boost your mood and get rid of the stress. So I hope you're rolling your shoulders. I'm hoping that you're taking a deep breath. I'm hoping that you're putting yourself in a posture to receive. And let's start off by taking some breaths. Wherever you are, you can do this. If you're in line and you have your earbuds on, you can do this. First of all, stretch and roll your shoulders back a few times. Bring them forward a few times. Unclench your jaw. How about that? Unclench, unclench your jaw. Okay. Also, as you're breathing, release any stressors, any thoughts, any concerns that are on your mind right now. Like right now. Just choose to release them. Let it go. Okay. Take a deep breath in, hold for 4, release for 6. So 4, 4, 6. That's what I usually tell people, because especially if you unfortunately are a smoker or had been a smoker, your lung capacity, I want to be mindful of that and respectful of that. Um, and when we're talking about mindfulness, we're trying to minimize distraction. So let's deep breathe 4, 4, 6. Take a deep breath in for 4, hold for 4, release for 6 out of your mouth. Okay? Do it one more time. Do it one more time with me. Like it may help. Like seriously. Take a deep breath in, hold for 4, release for 6. Practice that. Get used to taking deep breaths when you need to take a deep breath. Okay. All right. So let's jump into it. So, stress. I have some notes here, but I also want to let you guys know that even Forbes, let me tell you, Forbes has said that there is a matter of success that involves managing your stress. Did you know that? It took me a while to say that because I was pulling up the picture for those that are not watching and listening on YouTube. I am pulling up an article by Forbes magazine that says how the most successful people manage stress. Okay. And ultimately, it just brings us to a place where it talks about, they actually interviewed Dr. Srini Pali. And really, when we go through this article, and this isn't really the focus of it, but he talks about um, managing the unexpected, managing uncertainty, tips for recharging the brain, and using self talk to boost your confidence, right? What about gratitude? These are all things that go into the tools. But what I want to concentrate on for the purpose and sake of this particular episode of our podcast, we're going to be just talking about how life demands all the things that are going on in your world, things that are going on in life, how all of those demands work. Relationships, maintaining friendships, maintaining healthy relationships, whether it's intimate partnerships, whether it is co-workers, your colleagues, your relationship with your colleagues, relationships with the people that you manage. However it pans out, managing relationships are tough. Managing your money is tough. Um, Man, the gas prices are crazy, right? Groceries. One of my clients was like, it's getting expensive to be a vegan. And we just had a moment in session cracking up, right? But it is expensive. Don't throw in the fact of having kids. I'm a single mom, y'all, and it's rough out here. And I only have one, let alone those that are struggling and try to make things work with more. There are others out there that help with moms that have multiple kids and are running a business. I want you to tap into those resources, right? But when it's all said and done, stress is, and let me just give that definition. What is stress? People use that a lot. What is stress? Think about it. What does stress mean to you? Stress is essentially the feeling of being under too much mental and emotional pressure. How many of you are feeling pressure these days? I know I am. That's why I'm like, am I the only one on the struggle bus trying to figure out how to work through this and work through that to try to make this work and make this, grow and all of that? Am I the only one? I'm hoping that I'm not. I'm hoping that I'm not. I know that I'm not, quite frankly. But those pressures turn into stress. They turn into stress. They turn into this feeling that you don't have an ability to cope with things as they come and go. And just as the article that was in there about managing stress and how successful people manage their stress and find ways to manage it, let me tell you why it's hard though. why it is difficult. Well, first of all, the impact of stress has a direct effect and a transformative ability to change the literal meat matter of our brain, like literally the physical pieces of our brain, the physical parts of our brain, excuse me. But it has an impact on our entire nervous system. And remember, we're talking about why is it so hard? Because you have to understand what it is that are the barriers, what barriers lie there that are getting in your way of doing better, of reaching a place where you feel balance and harmony in your life. And this is the why. We are getting stuck in our stress cycle. You hear about the stress cycle often. You hear about that all the time, especially when we're talking about our fight or flight system. That's naturally built in our lives. Naturally built in to our nervous system. Okay. Fight or flight. And so, if we were to dig into that a little bit more, it's like, well, how exactly? Well, first of all, let's take a step back and let me tell you what the stages are, in very simple terms so that it is understood by all, especially those that aren't the ones that study psychology. This is the basics, okay? And if you are someone that is in the field that I'm in, mental health and what am I thinking? Human behavior modification, change. I'm a neurolinguistic programmer. So we also talk about change, using what it is that we say and think to bring about change, right? So when we're talking about the stages of stress, external stressors, external stressors are what we know to be the actual triggering event. That's the first part, when you first are triggered. The second part is where you're talking about how you then appraise and value and sort of label the event, whether it's before, during, or after that triggering event, that situation, just that event. So, first is the actual external impact of the stressor, the trigger. It comes into your life. It pops up in a situation, and all the ways in which the stressors that you're carrying presented themselves to you. Number two is the trigger. How is it that you interpret and label that trigger? So, event, labeling of the event, like how you view the event. And then there is the physiological response, whether it's that your heart is beating, your fists are clenching, your jaw is tightening, which is why a lot of times when I'm telling people or guiding people through, mindfulness exercises, deep breathing things, I usually say, loosen up your shoulders. Yes, get into posture. Yes, but also relax your jaw. Sometimes that's what we do. But then there's also the internalized awareness of it. So your heart can be beating, you can be getting that stress response before you even realize it. But once you're at the point of realizing it, that's where we talk about what happens. So let me tell you, the amygdala, and some of you have heard me share this, of how when you are operating in survival mode, you're operating from your amygdala, not your prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is everything that allows you to have memory recall, that gives you the bandwidth to execute problem solving, creativity, strategy, all of those executive functionings, okay? Decision making, right or wrong decision making, impulse control is in that prefrontal cortex area of your brain, which is usually centralized in the front of your head, near your forehead, generally speaking. And separately, that's also why throwing cold water on your face helps. But we're not talking about that. That's for another episode. The amygdala is at the base of the back of your brain, the base of your brain and the back of your head. The amygdala then is notified. It gets a message that there's a stressor. The stressor can be big, medium, or small. Either way, the amygdala is doing the, information gathering and giving the information over to your hypothalamus, okay? I always have a hard time saying that. The hypothalamus, okay? Hypothalamus is receiving the information from the amygdala of what are we doing in regards to the stressor. So between the hypothalamus and your pituitary glands, you're then getting your response. What am I doing? The pituitary gland, just so you know, the pituitary gland is responsible for homeostasis, which essentially is balance, that feeling of balance. We're not just talking about the word. And when we say and encourage, when we encourage like harmonious living, work life balance. The balance part of what's going on at home and at work is coming from your pituitary glands in collaboration with your hypothalamus, which received a message from your amygdala. Okay. So, where do we go from here? When we are talking about how how much this is stressful, how much it is difficult to get out of that place of stress and strain, we are talking about what is actually happening. And once we are in that place of getting these signals in our brain, we are also having to take our internalized awareness of the stressor. We are having to take that and we're having to then get to a point where we are then saying, now that I know, now I'm going to go to the next step. The next step, my people, is the coping. The next step, my people, ladies and gentlemen, is where we are alleviating the discomfort. We are identifying the how to's, the what next of what happened and what came up in our bodies physiologically. What we aren't realizing is that if we stay in that place of what's happening physiologically and in our bodies, we are missing an opportunity to stop the production, stop everything, stop, which is why a lot of times mindfulness is helpful because you are essentially saying, wait a minute, I am stressed. I am understanding and acknowledging that I am stressed. This is how stress is presenting and showing up in my body, which is a part of why breath work actually can be helpful for you if that is something that you're interested in exploring. But when it's all said and done, in order to complete the stress cycle, we have to reduce the stress we are experiencing. There is no sure way to do it. However, we have to take the steps: moving, breathing, laughing, speaking with your loved ones, your friends, crying, doing something creative can actually even have a profound impact. It's a matter of breaking down the cycle. Like breathing regulates the physical activity. I mean, breathing regulates, and sometimes through physical activity, breathing regulates your nervous system by increasing the amount of oxygen that's in your bloodstream. Okay. That's why breathing, if you can't do anything else, is to stop and breathe. Pace yourself with your breathing. Breathing can also engage your parasympathetic nervous system, which regulates the central nervous system. And you may notice that because of your stress, you are having trouble focusing. Breathing is normal. And if you can breathe and steady your breathing, you can bring your body back into focus. That's just an example of why a lot of times you'll hear me say, do some breathing. Like, you really need to breathe, you know? And so when it's all said and done, we have to understand that the response from stress stimulates our cardiovascular system, which of course is accelerating our heart rate. And at the same time, that parasympathetic nervous system that deep breathing can help with is becoming suppressed because of stress, causing your immune system to go low. Your digestion is hard. You having stomach aches. You stressed and wondering why your stomach hurt. The physical reaction can cause you to worry even more. Okay. Remember, I said we're going to be talking about why is it so hard? Why are we on this struggle bus? Because we're not aware of what's happening when we're stressed. And little stress is little stress, but how do you know if it's a little stress rather a big stress unless you take a moment to stop and assess what is going on? Listen, doing something that alleviates discomfort, that alleviates the physiological responses to the initial stress event will help you cope and get out of that final stage of the stress response. When you are instead checking your phone all the time, starting to increase or start drinking and self-medicating through substances, psychedelics, alcohol, mindlessly scrolling through social media, throwing yourself into more work or another project or another something. And maybe if I do this and if I do this and if I do this, no, it's not going to work. It's just going to build up. You are essentially creating a maladaptive coping strategy and cycle that isn't going to help you. You have to complete the cycle. In order to complete the stress cycle, we have to decrease the amount of stress that we're holding on to and release more of our intellectualized processing of the stress that we're experiencing and literally just either identify what it is that you need to do and move on. You have to find what works for you. That's the truth. Like I said, you may be noticing already that you can't remember, you're losing focus, you're finding yourself self-diagnosing yourself as ADHD and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, saying that you have that. And while there is a necessity to have that as a diagnosis, some of us need to check where we are with our stress. Let me leave you with this one. According to, an article that came out of Harvard Health newsletter, hugging, hugging helps reduce your stress. Did you know that? Did you know that? Think about it. Think about it. When you are needing to release stress, it is possible. It is quite possible that when it's all said and done, you can release your stress from hugging someone. Now, don't go hugging strangers now. Don't go hugging strangers, but know this: getting into a place where you understand what it is that you need to relieve your stress, you can come to a place where you become more successful because, at least according to Forbes, if you feel they're a great source, Forbes says the most successful people manage their stress. And they have different ways of doing it. Like I said, managing uncertainty, recharge your brain. They mentioned take 5 to 15 minutes of napping. Um, uh, Even 20 minutes, building in 20 minutes into your lunch break, doodling, having positive, constructive daydreaming. We call that in mental health field uh, guided meditations and what's the other one? It just slipped my mind. What am I thinking? When you're having a focus on something that brings you joy and you're really like bringing it to life, like guided imagery. That's what it is, guided imagery, doing puzzles, things that ground you, positive self-talk, reframe your thoughts, name the emotion, speaking in third person, be careful with that, but speaking in third person and let yourself know, speak to you, speak to yourself, encourage yourself. Journaling and expressing yourself through writing. Some people say, put together a stress journal. Put together a stress journal. See how that works for you. I say, it can be a brain dump. I call it a brain dump. You can call it, if it sounds prettier, you can call it a stress journal, a stress diary. Okay, where you are paying attention more to the things that are bringing you stress so that you can then identify it and move on from it. So, I'm hoping this was helpful. You are not alone in feeling like it is so difficult to get out of your rut, but you have to understand the steps in which you can then insert here your controlled and strategic self care effort. It's not just about let me add on another self care effort, it's about actually getting down to the bottom of your stress. And you may find yourself that by getting down to the bottom of your stress, what is stressing you, what is going on, how is stress presenting in me, you may come to realize that you have not left the stress response and the stress cycle for several events. Think about that. So, again, I hope this was helpful. Pass it along, click like, click share, put on your notifications so that you know when I drop another episode. This episode is pre recorded live. And so it drops the second and fourth Friday of every month around 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. But you don't even have to watch for it if you just turn on the notification, put on that little bell, subscribe. And if you are not on our YouTube channel for the podcast, check it out. Like, why not? Check us out on YouTube. And you really just can put in the Pop Podcast, okay? The Pop Podcast so that you can just save yourself some trouble, or click the link in my bio on all of my socials. It's the SPC group. Click my link tree and just click the link. Make it simple for yourself. Okay? We're not trying to stress you out. Um, and I'm trying to see if I can pull it up here just to make sure. Popcast, YouTube. Let's see. I'm just checking. Yeah, pull it up. Pull it up. We are starting to record. What you will see is like all of the seasons on there where you can listen. But we did start to record for the podcast live so that you guys can watch that too. So check it out there. Season 8, all of season 8. So we are now on the 4th episode. Season 8 is uploaded to YouTube. And just type in the Pop Podcast on YouTube and it will come up. Otherwise, like I said, click the little bell, subscribe, and just follow us for more as we continue on this pursuit of peace. And I want you guys to come with me so we can all be well and do bigger and better things. So you guys take care. Love you, love you, love you. And till next time, take care. Bye.